glad that you decided to stop by today. Today I want to talk to you about open doors. More specifically, I want to share with you how to identify them and how to react once you do. Like many people, I've had my share of luck. I've been at the right place at the right time and reaped the benefits of great timing. But today, I don't want to talk to you about luck. I want to talk to you about what to do when God finally answers your prayers. You see, the one thing that I've learned is that God is always listening to you. He hears every word that comes out of your mouth. He also knows what you're thinking about on a daily basis. And most importantly, He knows your heart. So when you send up those heartfelt prayers, whether they're formulated when you're on your knees or driving down the street on your way to work, you can rest assured that God has received the message. So, now that we have established that little fact, how do we know when a new opportunity has been created for us by God? How do we know without a shadow of a doubt that God has opened a door for you? Well, I humbly contend that there are at least 5 signs that indicate that your good fortune is actually a blessing from God. The first is that it is timely. You know that saying, He may not be there when you need Him, but He's always right on time. That is where that saying comes from. Have you ever witnessed a miracle in your life that was a true lifesaver? For instance, have you ever received some money from an unexpected place? Found out that you had been miraculously healed from a devastating illness? Or been given more time or access to the resources that you desperately need right in the nick of time? Well, that wasn't a coincidence. That was God. The second sign has to do with clarity. When God moves, there is no mistaking His hand. When you receive a blessing from God, there is no doubt that it's going to happen. Case in point, when I received my acceptance letter from my dream college, I knew that I would be attending that fall. Now, let me explain why this is such a strange thing to say. You see, I didn't grow up in a wealthy family. In fact, I came from very humble beginnings. So the idea of me going off to college seemed like a lofty, if not impossible goal. And to tell the truth, it really was one. But God. Let me break it down for you. You see, at the time, I didn't even have a few dollars to throw at my dream. My parents didn't have a college fund set aside for me. In fact, it was a struggle just to make ends meet each month. But somehow we always managed to get by. However, despite my dire circumstances, when I opened up that large envelope from my dream school and read that incredible letter, I knew that I would find a way to make it happen. I knew, even at a young age, that God had opened a door for me, and that all I had to do was find a way to walk through it. My path forward was clear. My acceptance letter didn't contain any stipulations. It clearly stated that I had been selected to join the incoming class. Let me reiterate that. God's acts are clear. There's no doubting when He makes a move. Clarity is the second sign from God. Now let's talk about the third sign, which is that it is achievable. In other words, when God opens a door, the path forward will be visible and available to you. You won't have to hack through a forest of dense trees or beg and plead for assistance from others. The path forward will be one that you can readily see and one that you can travel down with a little bit of effort if you choose to. As I think back to my freshman year in college, I remember miraculously receiving several scholarships financial gifts from friends and family, and other unexpected blessings that made it all possible. Even though the thought of me leaving home for the first time and traveling to a new city to attend school seemed like an impossibility, I somehow knew that it would all work itself out in the end. And guess what? It did. When I left for school for the first time as a freshman, I had the money and the resources that I needed to start my new journey. And though the path wasn't perfect, God cleared away my fears and any barriers that would have prevented me from being successful and allowed me to step into my destiny unfettered. Okay, so we've already discussed 3 of the 5 signs of God's favor. The first was that it is timely. The second was that the sign has clarity. And the third was that it is achievable. The fourth sign is that it appears to be unbelievable. Often when we accomplish something on our own, people may be a bit surprised that we were able to do it. However, when God opens a door, everyone around you will recognize His grace on your life. That is because His favor will be so abundant that it almost appears to be too good to be true. To give you an example, my first car was a little Honda. It was far from perfect, but I was still overjoyed with my purchase, and I was so proud of myself because I bought it without any help from anyone. Well, a few days later after I bought the car, the dealership where I bought it from called me and told me that they needed an additional $500 or they would repossess my car. I don't remember the exact reason they gave for asking for the additional money, but what I do remember is that it was a complete scam. I suppose that they were hoping to scare me into giving them a little kickback for nothing, but thankfully I didn't fall for it. When I got the call, I promptly returned to the dealership and handed them the keys to my vehicle. I didn't argue with them about their illegal demand for more money. And yes, all of my paperwork had already been signed, and I had already made a down payment on the car. I simply told them that I wanted my money back immediately. I also informed them that I would report them if they refused to comply with my request. Needless to say, I made them shred my original contract and ended up leaving the dealership with a check for my entire down payment that afternoon. Now, you may be wondering why I told you that strange story. Well, just listen to what happened next. I really needed a car, so I ended up going to another dealership a few days later. Thankfully, I had a very different experience the second time around. I went to the dealership looking for a late model used car and left the dealership that night in a brand new, beautiful SUV. Yes, that's right, an SUV. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? What? God, with His ultimate love and abundant grace, opened a door for me that no man could shut. And because of Him and Him alone, I drove away with a brand new SUV that was more than I could have ever dreamed of. I will never forget the look on my mom's face when I came home that night in a brand new SUV. She and everyone else that I knew was stunned that I could afford a new car. She had a hard time believing it, and to be truthful, so did I. Though I do have to admit that after I bought the car home, I kept waiting for the dealership to call me back to tell me that I had to bring more money in, but that call never came. That little SUV turned out to be just what I needed, because a short time after that, I was selected for a wonderful opportunity with a Fortune 10 company out of state. That little Honda wouldn't have been big enough to carry all of my belongings and help me ease on down the road, but the SUV handled it all just fine. The last sign of God opening a door for you is that it will be miraculous, meaning that it could not have happened without divine intervention. This sign reminds me of David's humble beginnings. Do you remember how King David started off? He was the unremarkable son of Jesse, a lowly shepherd boy who spent his days minding and caring for animals and assisting his older, more competent brothers, or so it seemed. Who would have ever have thought that David would one day become the king of Israel? More importantly, who would have thought he would have accomplished this task by doing the impossible, killing the giant Goliath? When God opened that particular door, he changed the path of David's life forever. It was a miraculous event that never would have taken place without the favor of God. So there you have it, the 5 signs that God has opened a door in your life. I'm sure there may be more, but I think that this is a good starting point if you're looking for some guidance in this area. Now, we've spent a little bit of time together today, and you've learned a little bit more about me and my journey. But before I leave you, let me tell you what to do once you recognize your open door. Run after your destiny, as T.D. Jakes would say. Don't hesitate. Don't ask for permission. Don't take too long to examine the whys and the hows. Just know with complete certainty that God, who loves you as he loves his only begotten Son, has opened a door for you. He is known as the Waymaker, after all. He has opened a door for you that no man can shut. So get up, dust yourself off, and start running. Thank you so much for stopping by today. I pray that this short message blessed your life. I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, stay blessed and take care.